Okay, so here's a short screencast to reiterate some of the things we've been saying, and actually to provide a little bit of clarity. I want to make sure that that this is a little bit more clear than I think that I was making it in class. We had sort of put archaic and classical period together because of the archaic period is really kind of a transitionary period between geometric and classical, and I think that probably it's best if we actually separate that out a little bit more and make the archaic its own period. And so we're going to actually look at geometric, archaic, classical, and Hellenistic. Now, the way we've been looking at the art isn't going to change. We're just doing a little bit of a different classification. I think this is actually probably a better way to think of it and a more clear way to think of it. One of the reasons, again, we had put sort of some of the periods lumped together is because archaic is seen as a kind of a transition period more than transition period between geometric and classical. But let's go ahead and be a little bit more precise and call it its own period. So here we have the geometric period, and we see again lots of patterns being repeated, lots of geometric shapes in the human form. The human form is represented really kind of almost kind of like cartoonishly, I guess we might think, very geometric angles, the shoulders, that sort of thing. The archaic period here is, again, what we had been saying was geometric. Let's call it archaic. Is more this particular piece, this Kouros, this is called the New York Kouros because it's on display in New York. The mask-like feature, but we'd still see the kind of triangular shoulders. Very much, it's very actually Egyptian in style, but that's not surprising at all because of the contact between the Greeks and the Egyptians. And the broad, thick feet, the feet are starting to split apart. There's a great deal of symmetry. I mean, the feet are split apart, but otherwise it's a very symmetrical piece. So again, just a little bit more of clarification that the archaic is really going to be kind of its own period between geometric and classical. Now, classical is really where we're going to be spending most of our time thinking about the art. Here we see a classical sculpture. There is the body is symmetrical in the sense that there's nothing. There's a left half and a right half, etc. But it's not symmetrical in the way that this archaic piece is. This archaic piece is quite regularly symmetrical. This classical piece, we see that one hand is raised, the other is not. Foot is ahead of the other. And we have this contrapposta, right, where the hips and the shoulders are placed at angles so that we could see a nice longer line. The Greeks believed this to be a better way of seeing the beauty of Greek art. And then finally, the beauty of the human form. And then finally, we have our example of Hellenistic art, right, where the emotion is just really powerfully on the face of the individual. All that we had been saying is still true. Again, I just wanted this screencast to just be a little bit more of a clarification. I think that we'll separate out we'll separate out archaic into its own category apart from either geometric or classical. So we'll call this archaic art. It's sort of a transition. We can see a lot of geometric features, but also some classical features, okay, in the sense that we're getting an idealized, stylized to be sure, but also idealized form of the human